First at 5 on your news leader, the shooting death of a beloved pastor and prominent leader in Memphis left plenty of people stunned, many asking, why would anyone kill Pastor Ricky Floyd? Well, tonight, only on News Channel 3, video showing a portion of what happened the night Pastor Floyd was shot to death.
I'm backing back 3 times now. When I do that, you know, back up. Back. I'm telling you.
At 1:17 a.m. on March 12, 2025, a woman's voice breaks through the silence of a Memphis emergency dispatch center. "I just shot someone," she says, her words cutting through the night air like a knife. The caller is 42-year-old Samantha Marion, and the person she just killed is Pastor Ricky Floyd, a beloved community leader who spent his life fighting against the very violence that would claim him.
I need someone here immediately. Someone has been shot. He is down. He is on the ground.
Just minutes earlier, Mama's Bar and Kitchen had closed its doors for the night. The last customers were heading home. But outside on Kentucky Street, a conversation about religion was about to turn deadly. What started as a simple disagreement between strangers would end with a pastor lying motionless in the middle of the road and a woman with no criminal history facing murder charges. Samantha Marion had never met Pastor Floyd before that night. She was just another customer enjoying her evening when their paths crossed in the most unexpected way. Floyd, known for sharing religious materials with people he met, somehow found himself in a heated discussion with Marion about faith and morality. But how does a conversation about God lead to gunfire? Welcome to our channel. Right now there are thousands of people walking into bars, restaurants, and public places every night, completely unaware that a simple argument could escalate into deadly violence in just minutes. If you want to help spread awareness about conflict prevention and the warning signs that could save lives, then please like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel. Your action now could help someone recognize when to walk away before it's too late. The surveillance cameras captured everything. They show a phone being thrown to the ground. They show the exact moment when words turned into violence, and when a night out became a nightmare that would destroy 2 families forever. Here's what makes this case so shocking. Both people involved were described as good citizens. Marion had no criminal record, while Floyd dedicated his life to helping troubled youth escape violence. Yet somehow these 2 strangers ended up in a confrontation that would leave one dead and the other facing life in prison. Have you ever been in an argument about religion that got heated? What would you do if someone kept approaching you after you told them to back away? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this case will make you question everything you think you know about self-defense. But first, let me tell you about the 2 people whose lives collided that night, and how a simple disagreement became Memphis's most controversial murder case. First, there's Samantha Marion. At 42 years old, she was living what most people would call a normal life. Her attorneys describe her as someone who had been nothing but a good citizen for years. She had no criminal record, no history of violence, and no red flags that would suggest she was capable of taking someone's life. Marion was the kind of person who blended into the background, unremarkable in the best possible way. She worked, paid her taxes, and stayed out of trouble. On the night of March 12th, Marion was just another customer at Mama's Bar and Kitchen. She had met a man named Stephen Newsom that evening, and they were having drinks together. Nothing about her behavior that night suggested she was looking for trouble. In fact, witnesses say she was simply enjoying her evening when everything went wrong. What makes Marion's story so puzzling is how quickly her life changed. In a matter of minutes, she went from being an ordinary woman having a night out to someone calling 911 to confess to murder. Her defense team emphasizes that this was completely out of character for her. They paint a picture of a woman who was forced into an impossible situation and made a split-second decision that would haunt her forever. Now, let's talk about Pastor Ricky Floyd, At 58 years old, Floyd was everything you'd want in a community leader. He served as the senior lead pastor at Pursuit of God Church in Fraser, Memphis, but his work went far beyond Sunday sermons. Floyd was the founder of Salvation Revelation Ministries, a nonprofit organization focused on community and spiritual development. He also served as president of the Husband Institute, a mentoring group specifically designed to help young men stay on the right path. Floyd wasn't just preaching about making a difference, he was actually doing it. He spent years advocating for police reform and working tirelessly to help teenagers escape violence. Local news stations regularly interviewed him because he was seen as a voice of reason and hope in a community that desperately needed both. He understood the streets because he had walked them, and he understood redemption because he had lived it. The pastor was known for carrying religious materials with him wherever he went. Friends and colleagues say he would often share these small publications with people he met, hoping to plant seeds of faith and hope. It was just who he was, always looking for opportunities to help others find their way. Floyd was also a family man. He left behind his wife, Pastor Sheila, who now faces the unimaginable task of moving forward without her husband. Their church community, which looked to Floyd for guidance and inspiration, suddenly found themselves without their shepherd. The ripple effects of his death continued to impact everyone who knew him. Here's what makes this case so heartbreaking. Floyd spent his entire adult life fighting against the very thing that killed him. He worked with young people who were involved in violence, trying to show them a better way. He advocated for peace and understanding in a world that often chooses conflict. The man who dedicated his life to preventing violence became a victim of it. The contrast between these two people couldn't be sharper. On one side, you have Marion, a woman with no criminal history who claimed she was defending herself. On the other side, you have Floyd, a man who spent his life trying to save others from violence, only to lose his own life to it. March 12, 2025, started like any other night at Mama's Bar and Kitchen on Kentucky Street. The popular downtown Memphis establishment was buzzing with its usual crowd of customers looking to unwind after a long day. But as the clock approached closing time, nobody could have predicted that this ordinary Tuesday night would end in tragedy. Mama's Bar and Kitchen sits at 855 Kentucky Street at Crump Boulevard, a location that's seen its share of late-night drama over the years, but according to the bar's management, what happened that night didn't actually occur inside their establishment. The violence erupted after they had already closed their doors and locked up for the night. Inside the bar earlier that evening, Samantha Marion was having what seemed like a typical night out. She had met Stephen Newsom, a man she'd never encountered before, and they were enjoying drinks together. The atmosphere was relaxed, and there was nothing to suggest that either of them was looking for trouble. Pastor Ricky Floyd was also at the bar that night. This might surprise some people, considering his role as a religious leader, but Floyd was known for going wherever he felt he could make a difference. He carried small religious publications with him, what his attorney called tracts, and would often share them with people he met. Floyd saw every interaction as an opportunity to spread his message of faith and hope. At some point during the evening, Floyd approached Marion and Newsom. He had his religious materials with him and began sharing his beliefs with them. What started as a simple conversation quickly turned into something much more heated. According to Marion's defense attorney, John Keith Perry, the argument centered around a specific challenge that Marion posed to Floyd. The dispute focused on a question that cut right to the heart of the matter. How could Floyd, a pastor, tell anyone anything about morality when he himself was at a bar and grill at 1 a.m.? Marion apparently felt that Floyd's presence in a drinking establishment at such a late hour undermined his authority to preach to others about right and wrong. Perry later told reporters that Samantha Marion was getting the best of him in that argument. The conversation became increasingly intense as Marion challenged Floyd's credibility and questioned his right to judge others while engaging in behavior that some might consider inappropriate for a man of God. Stephen Newsome found himself caught in the middle of this religious debate. He hadn't asked to be part of this confrontation, but there he was, watching two strangers argue about faith and morality in a bar after midnight. Newsome had no idea that his decision to step between them would soon put his own safety at risk. As the argument continued, other customers and staff began to notice the tension building between Marion and Floyd. Voices were getting louder, and what had started as a theological discussion was becoming a personal attack. The atmosphere in the bar shifted from relaxed to uncomfortable as people realized this wasn't just a friendly disagreement. The argument reached a point where it was clear that neither Marion nor Floyd was going to back down. Both felt they were right, and both seemed determined to prove their point. The other patrons in the bar could sense that something was about to go very wrong. When Mama's Bar and Kitchen announced last call and began closing procedures, the argument was still going strong. Floyd decided to leave first, walking out of the establishment and heading toward his vehicle. For a moment it seemed like the confrontation might be over. Marion, Newsome, and another witness also prepared to leave, stepping outside into the cool Memphis night air. But Floyd's departure didn't end the conflict. It only moved it to a more dangerous location. Outside the bar, away from the watchful eyes of staff and security cameras inside the building, the argument was about to take a deadly turn. The three people, Marion, Newsome, and the other witness, stood outside talking about what had just happened inside. They probably thought the worst was behind them. Floyd had left, and they could go their separate ways. But they were wrong. Floyd wasn't done with the conversation. Something about the argument had gotten under his skin, and he decided to come back. When he returned, witnesses say his entire demeanor had changed. The man who had been engaged in a heated but verbal debate inside the bar was now described as irate and aggressive. Have you ever been in a situation where an argument at a bar or restaurant got out of hand? What do you think you would do if someone came back after leaving, clearly looking for more trouble? Let me know in the comments, because what happened next shows how quickly things can go from bad to deadly. The stage was now set for a confrontation that would leave one person dead and another facing murder charges. Three witnesses were about to watch a religious argument turn into something none of them could have imagined. What happened next was captured on multiple surveillance cameras, giving us a clear picture of how a heated argument turned into a deadly shooting. The footage tells a story that both sides of this case interpret very differently. When Pastor Floyd returned to the scene outside Mama's Bar, his anger was obvious. The surveillance video shows him approaching Marion, Newsome, and the other witness with clear aggression. This wasn't the same man who had been having a theological debate inside the bar. This was someone who had worked himself into a rage. The cameras captured Floyd's first violent act. In a moment of fury, he grabbed Marion's cell phone and threw it hard to the ground. The phone, which Marion had been using, went flying across the pavement. Stephen Newsome, the man Marion had met that night, tried to step between Floyd and Marion. Newsome was attempting to be a peacemaker, trying to prevent the situation from getting worse. But his good intentions backfired in the worst possible way. Floyd, still in his rage, knocked Newsome to the ground with enough force that the back of Newsome's head hit the pavement hard. Newsome lay there, dazed and stunned from the impact. After throwing the phone and knocking down Newsome, Floyd seemed to calm down slightly. He walked back to his vehicle, a Tahoe truck, and got inside. For a moment it looked like he might drive away and end the confrontation. The surveillance cameras show his truck starting to move down the street. But Marion wasn't ready to let him leave. She had picked up her damaged phone from where Floyd had thrown it, and she walked out into the middle of Kentucky Street. The video shows her pointing her phone at Floyd's departing vehicle, apparently trying to record his license plate number. Marion later explained that since she had never met Floyd before, she wanted to get his plate number for potential legal action. This decision to step into the street and record his vehicle proved to be the turning point. Floyd saw what Marion was doing, and instead of continuing to drive away, he stopped his truck. The surveillance footage shows him putting on the brakes, then getting out of his vehicle with purpose. Floyd began walking back toward Marion, who was still standing in the street with her phone. At this point, Marion had already gone to her car and retrieved a black handgun. She later told police that she put the gun behind her back, hoping she wouldn't need to use it. The video that Marion's attorneys later released shows these crucial final moments. Floyd can be seen approaching Marion as she repeatedly tells him to back up. Her voice on the recording is clear. "I'm backing back 3 times now. When I do that, you know. Back thee up, back thee up."
I'm backing back 3 times now. When I do that, you know. Back the up. Back. I'm telling you, bitch. You know.
Despite Marion's warnings, Floyd continued walking toward her. The video shows him getting closer and closer, even as Marion kept telling him to stay away. Then the recording suddenly cuts out, just seconds before the fatal shot was fired. According to witness Stephen Newsom, who had recovered from being knocked down, Floyd was backing away from Marion when she fired the gun. The surveillance cameras from the bar confirm this account. They show Floyd walking backwards, away from Marion, when the shot rang out. The single bullet struck Floyd, and he immediately fell to the ground. He never got back up. The Memphis Fire Department arrived at the scene and pronounced Pastor Ricky Floyd dead at 1:24 AE, just 10 minutes after Marion had called 911 to confess to the shooting. Police found 1 shell casing at the scene and discovered Marion's black handgun in plain view inside her vehicle. The entire confrontation, from Floyd's return to the fatal shot, had lasted only a few minutes. But those few minutes changed everything for everyone involved. The legal battle that followed Pastor Floyd's death became just as complicated as the night itself. 2 completely different stories emerged about what really happened on Kentucky Street, and the evidence seemed to support both sides, depending on how you looked at it. Samantha Marion was initially arrested and charged with voluntary manslaughter. This charge suggested that while she had killed Floyd, prosecutors believed it happened in the heat of passion rather than with premeditated intent. Marion posted a $100,000 0-cents bond in April and was released from jail after spending 7 days behind bars. Her defense team, led by attorneys John Keith Perry and Kevin Massey, immediately began building a self-defense case. They argued that Marion was an innocent woman who found herself in a terrifying situation and had no choice but to protect herself. Perry told reporters that Marion defended herself when she was facing grave danger, and emphasized that this was her first criminal offense ever. The defense attorneys released the cell phone video that Marion had recorded, showing Floyd approaching her aggressively. In the video, you can clearly hear Marion telling Floyd to back up multiple times. Perry argued that this video proved Floyd was the aggressor and that Marion only fired when she felt her life was in danger. The video does not capture the gunfire that would have taken place, probably maybe 3 or 4 seconds later, but it clearly shows him approaching her aggressively after being told several times to stop, Perry explained to the media. The defense team maintained that Floyd had already shown his violent tendencies by throwing Marion's phone and knocking Stephen Newsom to the ground. Kevin Massey, Marion's other attorney, painted a picture of Floyd as an angry man who fought through 2 individuals to get to her. He argued that Floyd's intentions were clearly hostile. It was clear that his intentions was definitely not to give her a hug and say, "Hey, let's work this out," but he had aggression in his heart and in his mind. However, the prosecution saw things very differently. The first police officer to arrive at the scene, Patrolman Cordell Boyd, testified during Marion's preliminary hearing in June. His testimony revealed serious problems with Marion's self-defense claims. Boyd pointed out a crucial inconsistency in Marion's story. If Marion truly felt threatened enough to go to her car and get a gun, why didn't she just drive away? If she felt threatened enough to go to her vehicle for a gun, she could have left, Boyd testified. This simple observation raised questions about whether Marion was really defending herself or looking for a confrontation. The officer also testified about what Marion told him at the scene. According to Boyd, Marion said she had put the gun behind her back and kept it there during the confrontation. She claimed that during the final exchange she reached forward and accidentally fired a shot. But this account didn't match what the surveillance cameras showed. The surveillance footage became the most important piece of evidence in the case. While Marion's cell phone video showed Floyd approaching her, the bar's security cameras told a different story about the actual shooting. According to police testimony, these cameras clearly showed that Floyd was backing away from Marion when she fired the fatal shot. This contradiction between Marion's claims and the video evidence became a major problem for her defense. If Floyd was truly threatening her, why was he walking backwards when she pulled the trigger? The case took a dramatic turn on August 26, 2025, when a grand jury reviewed all the evidence and decided to upgrade the charges against Marion. Instead of voluntary manslaughter, she was now indicted for second-degree murder, employment of a firearm with intent to commit a felony, and reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. The upgrade to second-degree murder was significant. It meant that the grand jury believed Marion's actions went beyond a heat of passion killing. They found enough evidence to suggest that she intended to cause Floyd's death, even if she didn't plan it in advance. The community reaction to the case was mixed. Pastor Earl Fisher, who was a friend of Floyd's, called for accountability and justice. If this is a step in the direction of figuring out what exactly happened, what level of accountability and responsibility certain parties need to adhere to, then I would have to be here for that, in the name of Ricky Floyd and all those who love him, Fisher said. Floyd's family, represented by spokesperson Talisa Franklin, chose to stay largely out of the public debate. When shown Marion's cell phone video for the first time, Franklin said, "At this difficult time, we're just totally focused on prayer and maintaining our faith in the justice system. We trust that it will fulfill its purpose and provide us the answers and the accountability that is essential right now." The family's pain was evident in Franklin's words. "All we know that our pastor, Pastor Sheila, is now a widow. Our church is without our pastor." Looking back at this tragedy, it's clear that multiple decisions led to Pastor Floyd's death. This wasn't just one person's fault, it was a series of choices that turned a simple argument into a deadly confrontation. The first mistake happened when both Marion and Floyd refused to walk away from their religious argument. Pride and ego kept them engaged in a debate that was never going to have a winner. When Floyd left the bar initially, that should have been the end of it. But his decision to return showed that his anger had taken control. Marion also made critical errors in judgment. When Floyd came back acting aggressive, she had options. She could have gotten in her car and driven away. Instead, she chose to arm herself and stay in the situation. Even worse, when Floyd started to leave in his truck, she walked into the street to record his license plate, which brought him back for the final confrontation. The presence of alcohol likely played a role in clouding everyone's judgment that night. Bar environments after closing time are already high-risk situations, and adding personal conflicts makes them even more dangerous. Could this have been prevented? Absolutely. If either person had chosen to de-escalate instead of escalate, Floyd would still be alive today. If Marion had driven away when she felt threatened, or if Floyd had stayed in his truck and left the scene, this tragedy never would have happened. The biggest lesson here is about conflict management. When someone is clearly agitated and aggressive, engaging with them only makes things worse. Walking away isn't cowardly, it's smart. Having a gun doesn't mean you have to use it, and feeling threatened doesn't always justify deadly force. What do you think could have prevented this tragedy? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between your pride and your safety? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to see more true crime cases like this one, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. As of today, Samantha Marion remains free on her $100,000 0-cents bond while awaiting trial on the upgraded charges of second-degree murder, employment of a firearm with intent to commit a felony, and reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon. The case has been transferred to the Special District Attorney's Office in Nashville, and Marion will face another bond hearing on these new charges. No trial date has been set yet. The impact on Memphis has been profound. Pursuit of God Church lost their shepherd, and Pastor Sheila Floyd became a widow in an instant. The congregation that looked to Pastor Floyd for guidance now struggles to move forward without him. His death sent shockwaves through the community he served, especially among the young people he mentored through the Husband Institute. This case raises uncomfortable questions about self-defense laws and when deadly force is justified. Marion's attorneys argue she was protecting herself, while prosecutors believe she crossed the line from victim to aggressor. The surveillance footage will likely be the key evidence that determines her fate. The tragedy also highlights how quickly situations can turn deadly when pride, anger, and weapons mix together. Two people who had never met before that night are now forever connected by a few minutes of poor decisions that changed everything. Pastor Floyd spent his life trying to save people from violence, only to become a victim of it himself. Marion, a woman with no criminal history, now faces the possibility of spending decades in prison. Both families have been destroyed by choices made in moments of anger. This case reminds us that every decision we make has consequences, and some consequences can never be undone. When we choose conflict over peace, when we let our pride control our actions, we risk losing everything that matters. The Memphis community continues to wait for justice, hoping that the legal system will provide the answers and accountability they desperately need.